Now, to get a deeper understanding of where we are in this global economic crisis, we turn again to Marcus Mabry, International Business Editor of the New York Times. Welcome, Marcus.
Good to be here.
So, stocks have been surging in recent weeks, largely due to better than expected bank reports, their earnings. A sign that things are turning around, or is it just premature exuberance?
Well, unfortunately, and I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I have to think it's more the latter. There's been a lot of very smart accounting tricks here, all perfectly legal, but the banks have been booking lots of gains that are not real life gains right now. Now, the bank's excuse would be that we often have to do accounting rules that make us look like we lost more money than we actually lost in a given quarter. They'd say that they're actually doing fine and they're getting stronger. But I think it's still a little bit early, and there are lots of minefields still out there. Most importantly, things like consumer debt, commercial real estate, things that they hold in their portfolio that could yet explode.
Earlier, we had a report on how the British government is struggling with budget deficits. And this brings up a good question here. When is the time that a government starts dealing with budget deficits and stops dealing with stimulus programs?
It's hard to know because there's a real philosophical divide here. In the U.S., for instance, the Obama administration believes that, and most economists in the U.S. would tell you this, both on the right and on the left at this point, in a state like this, when you're in a recession, you don't worry about deficits. You spend to stimulate your economy, to keep it live, to keep it growing somewhat, to keep it buoyant, to keep it from falling too much. A country like Spain, we see a deflationary cycle right now, which means prices are being cut, but so are wages and workers. And you want to keep that from happening.
So you're saying there's no hard, fast rule?
No, there's not. There's not.
Eastern Europe, we also had a report from there, formerly home to some of the world's fastest growing, most successful economies, at least for their part of the world.
Sure.
What happened?
Well, what happened was there were lots of loans that were taken out. They were taken out by individuals, by companies, and even by governments that were foreign denominated. So they were actually not in florins, for instance, in the case of Hungary, but they were in euros, or they were in Swiss francs, or they were in dollars. And what happened was, once this global crisis hit, the dollar, everyone fled to the dollar, and all the other currencies really took it on the chin, especially small currencies like Hungary's and like Poland's. So all those debts that they had in those countries, they had kind of they had this new prosperity built largely on debt, which is the way we had done it, after all, in the United States for many, many decades. Suddenly, these debts grew enormous to the point where they actually couldn't afford them anymore.
All right, well, let's try to look forward then. A quick read on the rest of 2009. What are the economists predicting for the future?
Well, it's interesting. We still are talking about despite some glimmers of hope recently in the global economy, we're still talking about a down year globally. We're still talking about a year in which we may see the first decrease in global trade in decades. However, the silver lining here, and this may yet come to pass, seems to be so far China. It is not taking it on the chin as badly as Europe or the United States, and so they may actually keep growing to a point that they can lead the rest of the world out of recession.
But wasn't that always the hope? Didn't we always think China was the savior?
You're right. It always was the hope, but the question is, could China become a consumer market rather than an export-driven market fast enough to make that happen? And I still doubt that without an American market where American consumers are consuming Chinese goods, if it can still happen, if China can really keep the world buoyed and afloat.
Marcus Mabry, thanks very much.
Thank you.